Right, today, guys, I'm going to be going over an old option that I'm going to put on this 2009 Cobalt. And this is for something that back in the day was called a personal audio link. And it's basically a precursor to the personal device interface modules that you would use today on a car like a Cruze or a Camaro. And we're going to start with the second box, actually, which is the installation package. So each of these things came with a different package to install it, whether you had a Corvette or a Cobalt. They were all different part numbers. So this guy is part number 192-12084. And what's going to be inside of this box is going to be everything we need to install this option. So there's a wiring harness that goes into the factory radio. There's a clip with the old FireWire type Apple interface. There's a couple of other things in here, a template that you need to drill a hole, and a couple of installation manuals. So one manual covers the Pontiac Solstice and Saturn Sky, and the manual we want, hopefully, is this guy, yep. And the other manual covers the Chevrolet HHR, Cobalt, and Pontiac G5. So we're going to be using this guy to walk through the installation of this. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to put this Solstice and Sky version back in here. It tells you what all you've got, and it tells you what tools that you're going to need to do this. Whether you don't have XM radio, or whether you do, all of these, and if you also then have XM radio, you're going to need some additional tools. Now this is meant for the dealer's service people to do, but we're going to be doing it ourselves. So I'll try to walk through these pages slow so you can see them if you have other options and other vehicles that this covers. But right off the bat, they tell you if you've got a 2006 vehicle to make sure you've installed the latest radio software. So that would be using the GM service programming system and a Tech 2 with a Candy module on these particular vehicles in order to update the firmware on the radio. But we've got a 2009, so we can jump right into the installation procedure. So it's saying the first thing we need to do is remove both of the front door console trim panels, and then behind that is the BCM, the body control module. So they want us to take these trim panels that are right down here, this guy right here. So I'm going to go ahead and start removing that. I'm going to get some of these boxes out of the way. And I think that this particular panel here I might not even need a tool for. So you got some really strong clips that are holding this guy on. And what I'd suggest you do is pull it up from the bottom so that you don't put any extra pressure on these two kind of insert type clips. We get this guy out of the way and you swing around and you can actually see the wiring harness going into the body control module. And it looks like the reason they want to expose this module is because they're going to be having you take one of the wires out of that and splice it into this harness that they have. Looks like. All right, and then what they're suggesting here is that the actual personal audio link device will be mounted up underneath to the cover to the heater, is what they're suggesting. So, you know, if you look at the picture here, we can see here is the electronics that we have up here. And then we have this large cutout right here, which corresponded to this little vent for your heat to come out. That's this piece on the picture here. And then there's a little cutout here, and this is the heater cover that they're referring to. So what they're suggesting, if I open up this other box with the actual personal audio link itself, and on the back of this it's got some adhesive tape. What they're suggesting is that they want you to try and mount it like right up under here, probably in this direction because of the way the connector is for the wiring harness. So I'm not actually going to stick that on right now. I'll leave this up here where you guys can see these instructions. But they're basically saying to remove that dual lock tape on the module. And they want you to wipe that area down with the adhesion promoter packet provided. I guess if we look in the box, we can just pull that over here for you. You can see there's actually in the kit, you've got this little 3M wipe with this particular chemical on it. It's probably not anything more than a cleaner. And they want you to wipe that down before you do the tape. And then they want you to place the module between the heater cover and the front of the console, with the module's tape facing the heater cover and the connections facing the sides of the car as shown in Figure 2. So actually, they're showing it in this orientation with these two RCA jacks and this RJ45 facing this way, as you can see in the picture down here. And then they're telling you to remove the backing tape and press it into position. So I'm going to do this at the end after we try this out and make sure everything's working before we affix it permanently in position. Now we're going to go to the next page. It says steps 5 through 10 are for the HHR only. So I'm going to skip 5 through 10, but I'll have them on here in case you have an HHR. And Figure 3 is particular to the HHR, so we're going to jump down here to 11. Remove the instrument panel trim plates on the Cobalt and G5 only by pulling outward. And then remove the IP center trim panel and disconnect the electrical connections. So Figure 4 is what we're after. So we got two side panels and a center panel so that we can remove the radio. Just reading ahead after that, yep, they want you to remove the radio and disconnect the electrical connections. And then they want you to route the PAL's harness with the 16-wire connection over to the PAL unit through the opening behind the radio, and then connect this to the PAL module. And then they want you to route the other two harness connections, 16-wire and 14-wire, to the large connector on the PAL harness. So these are the wires, these are wire connections on the harness that were connected to the radio, and then they show you a figure down here. So you basically are connecting this guy in between the existing harness. So before we go much further, let me point out back on this first page, just want to make sure you guys caught this, right? So whether you have U2K, so U2K means whether you have XM radio. Doesn't matter whether you have a subscription. It's whether XM radio came with the car, because that's going to affect the type of wiring harness you have and the connections at the body control module. If you don't know if you have option U2K, this is RPO U2K for XM radio, go to the trunk on these Cobalts, and you can check the what they call the SPID label, SPID label, the service something, I can't remember what they call these, yeah, here it is, the service parts ID label. That's a list of all the RPOs, these 3-digit codes of what came with the vehicle. And when we break, I'll show you that in the trunk just so you can know what it means. All right, we're in the trunk area of this Cobalt. I said I was going to show you guys where you can find that sticker that shows your options and such. And so if you pull back this carpet, you can see that sticker is right here on this model. And here we see U2K, and that's what we were talking about earlier, is the option code that says this vehicle originally came with an XM stereo tuner. And then right next to it is US8, and that's the type of radio that the system, that got put on at the assembly line. So US8 or US9 are the two radios you have to have for this option, and then you just need to know if you have U2K or not in order to go down whichever leg of the instructions I've been going over. All right, so let's go back where we were. Make sure you've got XM radio so that as we go through these instructions, you want to know which ones that you have. I'm going to be going down the XM radio path because this vehicle does have it installed. All right, let's get started taking this stuff apart. So we're going to start backing up here with this large trim plate. Now this is an LS model, so 2009, so if you got an LT or a base, you might see something different. There's going to be the same, I suspect, there's going to be the same very strong metal clips, so you're going to have to probably give it some force to get it off of here, and it's going to make a lot of noise, so don't be afraid of it. So same kind of metal clips. And then we're going to probably get some of these boxes out of the way. We're going to have to do the same thing over here by the driver's side, by the console. There's a small one. Actually two holding it in here. And then we should be able to do the same thing with this centerpiece now. All right, and then this airbag connection indication, we're just going to unplug it. And now we've exposed the radio. Now I think the radio's held in, yep, 7mm, just like they suggested. They asked you to have a 7mm bit set handy. And that's exactly why I had this. So we're going to remove these guys so that we can extract the radio. Screws are pretty long. So we'll break for a second. Don't necessarily have to watch me take all of these off, and we'll come back after I got these screws out. All right, I've just about got the last screw out, so we'll come back and pick it up. And with this guy removed, we should be able to pull the radio back. Yep. That's the other thing to point out here too, by the way. You've got to have the factory radio to install this particular option. So I'm going to disconnect our antenna. Then I'm going to give these guys a pinch, get them extracted. Okay, so now we've got everything extracted. We'll set the radio here. And then I'll bring into view here, I'm going to reopen the kit. And we're going to take a look at this harness. And we're going to take this little tie strap off. And then we're going to see if we can see what was being shown in the figure here. All right, so we're trying to take a look at the vehicle's wiring harness, plugs into this harness that was provided, and then this harness connects to the radio. So I can see right now what that looks like. So that would be this guy here. All right, you want to make sure it clicks. And then this is going to go back onto the radio itself. Really hear this guy click, so these blue tabs tend to be like a lock. So I'm going to pull that out, see if we can get it to click. There it goes. All right, so now we've got the harness set up in where they want us to for the radio. And then we're going to need probably, yes, this seems like this is what would mount over to the PAL unit itself. Let me reach down here and get it. Yeah, this is what's going to end up plugging into the PAL unit on this side. Pull this lock piece out so we don't get stuck with that same problem again. And then this is the wire they want you to splice in to the wire that goes to the XM that's by the body control module. All right, so we've almost got this wired up. So what we're going to have to do now is probably one of the harder parts. We're going to have to fish this stuff down so that we can access it from that location. Let me see if they gave us any hints in the manual here. May be helpful to first push the vehicle's harness through the opening and outward, and then push the large PAL connector through the opening before connecting them. Okay. Well, I'm probably going to have to go get a flashlight to see back here. But what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to find a good place where we can route this harness back down and pull it over here where we're going to need it. So let me go get a flashlight and we'll come back. All right, guys, I got my flashlight here. Hopefully now we come inside this cavity. We can see if I bring my hand up where the body control module is, you can see my fingers down here. So I think what I want to do is route the beginning of this connector down through that opening. Let's see if we got something metal here to stick this onto. Probably not. Maybe you can hang it right over here. See if that works. And we're going to route this cable down through that opening. It's a lot longer than it needs to be because it has to fit multiple vehicles. So we won't necessarily try to pull it all through. And now that we've got it routed through, just don't get anything around this metal tab with the hole, because that's where this pin on the radio goes and sits for alignment purposes. And make sure your airbag indicator harness doesn't creep back out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one of our retaining screws, just kind of pin the radio back where it belongs. I don't think we need this flashlight anymore. All right, at this point we've got the PAL harness set into the radio, and now we can actually plug it into the PAL unit itself. And then the last thing we've got is, because we've got the XM radio option, we've got this additional connector to splice in. So let me break and put the rest of these screws back on for the radio, and we'll come back. All right, guys, I'm going to, just to get some of this stuff out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and put this cover back on. We're going to reconnect this connection for the airbag indicator. And then I'm going to put this trim piece back on. And I'm going to put this other trim piece back on. At this point, we've got all of this done. This guy looks like he goes down here first. All right. So you got a tab along the bottom here that you've got to get in this piece in order to get it down low enough to seat the clips. I might have to do this one later when I can sit in the driver's side seat. Yeah, I'll do this one later when I can get in the driver's side seat. Got to be at the right angle. All right, come back down here, and I'll probably end up putting a zip tie on all this slack. But I'm going to route this through here, right above where that heater outlet is. Push it up so it doesn't get in the way of that. And then we're going to keep this harness here. Actually, there's a little twisty on here as well. I'm going to go ahead and take that off. Get some more slack on this wire. All right, and then we can come over here and connect this here and lock it in. All right, and we got power to this guy because he just lit up. So the last thing we've got, looks like this little guy's a little bit tangled up. There we go. All right, let's go back to our manual and see where we're at. All right, so we've got this harness in. That's all done. Vehicle is equipped with factory installed XM, RPO U2K. That's us. Vehicle is not equipped. Proceed to step 22. I'll show you step 22 later. Let's go ahead and keep going with this one. Locate the J1 connector in the lower right corner of the BCM. Pry open the connector lock to disengage the connector. All right, so that would be, the lower right would be this guy here. My flashlight. So we got to get this little retaining connector to come off. There it goes. Push that all the way down, and we can release the connector. All right. All right, so we got the J1 connector off. It says to remove the connector cover and remove the terminal position assurance, the TPA, which is what's holding all these pins in. Observe the two TPA legs on the rear edge of the connector between the shroud and the connector body, and using a pocket screwdriver, press the legs out. Okay, let's see if we can see that. Okay, I can see that here. All right, guys, I wanted to consult the service manual and see what it told us about that particular pin that we're cutting off there on number 18. So if we take a look at this BCM connector and we take a look at pin 18, we can see that this is the GM LAN serial data connector. So all we're really doing here is splicing this guy into the communications bus on the car. The other thing I wanted to take a look at is I wanted to see what was the story with how to get this connector apart. And I found a blow up in the service manual for that as well. So we can see that the part number 3 is what we have to get off. And we can see down here that's referred to as the dress cover. And we can see that part 7 is the terminal positive assurance connector that slides in there between parts 7 and 8. So with this picture, we can get an idea for what it is that we're after. We need to find a way to snap that cover off. So I get it now. So let's go back to the car and get it done. All right, guys, I consulted the service manual, and it turns out it's under this cover. So you'd think they would have indicated to remove this cover to discover this, but they did not. So of course that piece of information may not be that useful if we can't get the cover off. This is probably the hardest part of the whole job here, is just figuring out how to get this guy open so we can get in here and make the wiring harness connection we need to do. All right, let me look into this and we'll come back. All right, looks like you got to have this guy pressed all the way down while you push on the blue here. So when you push on the blue here, with this guy all the way down, then it unsnaps. At least it did when I just tried it earlier. But this blue guy is what we're trying to get off. There it goes, I think. One side. All right, so I'm going to need to push on both of these at the same time and then lift up. Hopefully I can do that. One at a time. And then bring this down. There, finally. All right, that's what they want us to do to expose the wiring. And now they want us to locate the 18th wire, which they indicated was going to be over on the right-hand side from this view. Lower right-hand side in this view. Dark green wire. And looking over here, yes, I see this dark green wire going into this final position over here. So the next thing we got to probably figure out is how to get that guy released. So I'm probably going to go ahead and cut this other zip tie as well, since it's creating some problems for us to have some slack. With that guy cut, we can have a better view of what we're looking at over here. Yep, so I see now this guy right here would be in the 18th position based on the drawing they did. From 1 to 18 on the bottom row, 55 to 72 on the top row when viewed from the bottom. You can tell it's from the bottom because you've got this indentation for the zip tie, which is right here. And then you got these two plastic molding pieces right there. So this guy right here by my thumb right there is the one we want. We flip that right around. That's this 18th one. So next thing I got to do is they're suggesting that you use the special J tool to remove the terminal from the cavity. which means to push it out. And looking up this special tool, it's a very tiny thing that would sit in here and push that out. So what I'm going to see if I can do is get a really tiny screwdriver and do the same thing. So let me go find that tool that will fit, and we'll keep going. All right, guys, going to have to zoom in here. And if you look right down into this connector, you'll see a couple of green tabs here and here. And if you take a small screwdriver and prise them out, and then over here, keep prising them out, there's this little guy on the side that retains all these terminals. And this is the TPA they were referring to. It's just really hard to get a grip on it, but once you do get a grip on it and you can pull it out, then we can flip it over. And to confirm we're looking at the right numbers, if you look in this lower corner here, you can see the 55 molded into the plastic. And then up in the top where this green wire is, you can see the 18. And so we know we've got the right wire because it said to remove 18. So now, with this thing pulled out, we can flip it over and take our very tiny screwdriver and push the 18th terminal out and remove it. And then put this guy back in so that the others don't come loose until it snaps. And make sure that you can see the two green tabs here, knowing that you've reseated completely the TPA. So at this point, we can put this blue cover back on and re-zip tie it, because we finally extracted this wire that they want us to remove, that we're ultimately now going to clip off the end and splice into this one. So I'm going to go ahead and get this back into position, and then we're going to go come back and do this splicing. All right, guys, I went ahead and put a new zip tie on the back piece that's holding the wiring. I'm going to put a zip tie on this body cover later on, but first just want to test everything out. So I'm going to go reconnect this BCM connector, J1. And now we're going to go ahead and proceed to do this piece. So what they tell us to do here, so now we've removed connector 18. It's dark green wire. We have untaped the jumper wire that was labeled XM. And they want us to cut the terminal off the BCM wire we just removed and splice these two together. So it looks like even though they tell you all the tools you need, they don't mention that you're going to need to strip this wire. So I'm going to have to go strip it off, but let's go ahead and clip off the connector. So I'm just going to clip this connector off right here. Then I am going to have to try and strip this off. Should have my strippers, but rather than cut the video again, I'll see if I can get it with this. If not, we'll go get our strippers. There it goes. Okay. And then all we're supposed to have to do here is push this guy in like so. And then you're going to need to use a crimping tool. Well, I don't have a GM one, but I do definitely have a crimping tool that I can bring out and use on this. And then you're going to use a heat gun to shrink the tubing. And then you're supposed to see glue that comes out both ends to know that you've got a good connection there. Okay, and then replace the PCM connector. All right, we did all of that. And XM must be re-enabled. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just pause for a second after this next step. So first I'm going to go get my crimping tool. We'll crimp this guy. We'll heat him up. And then we're going to have to go get Step 21 requires you to have a Tech 2 tool. And I do have one of those, and I'll show you that, and we'll come back to that and a couple more. But first, let me go get the stuff we need to finish. All right, guys, I ended up not using their crimp connector because I couldn't find what I needed to get it to crimp properly, so I just put one of my own on here, and I got this guy connected. So all we have left to do in the wiring piece here is kind of zip tie some of this stuff up and out of the way and make it a little neater. I'm going to do that next. And then we got a zip tie back on this blue cover that I mentioned. We got a zip tie on the wiring, but I didn't have one handy that's the size to go around the base. And at this point, the next thing that's left is to put your Tech 2 in here and configure this PAL for XM radio. On that point, the wiring and the setup is all done. The next few steps are for HHR only, right? Steps 22 to 26. If we scroll past those, and we go back over here, 26 puts us down here. 27 and for 29 is where we would start working in the glove box. So basically what they have you do after you get all the wiring done, if I go pull over what we got left in the kit here, we've got now this cable that you actually plug the iPod or the older iPhone into. This guy connects on the other side of the PAL right here. Upside down. And then this guy would plug into a grommet that you make a hole in the glove box for. And the idea is you'd have this connector kind of sitting in here so that you could plug the device in. So to do that, they give you a little template for the hole you drill so that this grommet will fit like right in the center there. And at that point, we zip tie this off. We put the cover back on. I still need to install this cover over on the driver's side. And she's all set up. I'm going to show you a couple other things to modernize this, though, when we get it all done. This old-style iPod connector is back in the 12-volt FireWire days. And I'll show you an adapter you can get on here that will then add 5-volt charging for an iPhone with one of these older iPod-type connectors. And then I'll show you finally another adapter from Apple that converts this to a lightning jack so you can plug in and charge or play off of a modern iPhone or a modern iPod Touch. So let's go ahead and get this all cleaned up, and I'll come back right before I put the cover on, and I'll show you putting this cover on, and then we'll work on this hole, and we're nearly done. All right, guys, we're going to put this piece of side trim on that we weren't able to reach when I was on the other side. To make that a little easier, I'm going to pull this lower panel off here. Same deal. There's just these little clips in here. Same exact clips we see on the side here. And now with that out of the way, I can line this guy up, put him back in, and we're done with that. Now we've got everything put back together, and then we left off here at step 21. And again, before I go on, I just want to kind of reiterate what we were saying on this earlier piece, right? So we started down this path at step 16 that said, if your vehicle was equipped with factory installed XM, right, RPO U2K, and if not, proceed to step 22. All right, so we've done all of this stuff with the BCM connector because we have that option, and we're landing here at step 21 as the last step of that option. Again, if you don't have U2K, which meant that the car was originally wired for XM radio, you would have skipped all the way down here to start doing the work on the glove box for the iPod harness to come through. So this is the last step on the XM side. So again, this was a dealer installed option, and so you would have had to have the equipment that a dealer has to install this. I happen to have that, so I'm going to get my Tech 2 out and turn my ignition on and proceed to do these last few steps here. So this is a car that needs a Tech 2 plus a candy module. So that's my Tech 2 and a candy module, and I'm going to plug this into the onboard diagnostic port that's on the bottom of the car over here. Close this door so you don't hear the beeping when I put the key in. Turn this guy so I can turn him on. And then what the instructions say to do is, after you get in here, they want you to build the vehicle, which means you're going to go into diagnostics, select body, and then personal audio link module, special functions, digital radio receiver, and enable. So we're going to go into diagnostics, build the car. This particular one is a 2009 Chevrolet. It's a Cobalt, so it's an A model car. Going to go into body. Establishing communications now with the onboard computer and the body control module. Assuming I got it turned on. There it is. All right. And now we're going to go into the body control module. Actually, sorry, I didn't mean that. We're going to go into the personal audio link module. So used to going into BCMs. And we're going to come into special functions, just like it says. We're going to go into digital radio receiver. And it has a choice to do enable or disable. So don't do this enable if you don't have a digital radio receiver, because if you do, the PAL unit's going to be permanently bricked and hung looking for one. So make sure that you actually have one connected in the vehicle before you do this. And of course on the Cobalt, it's sitting underneath the package tray in between the two rear speakers. We do have this, so we're going to enable it. It's going through and talking to the PAL unit and telling it that it should be looking for the XM radio. Procedure is complete, so we can exit out of it. So at this point, we're done with the setup for a vehicle with XM. We can turn off the Tech 2, and we're going to continue on to the next step, right? So step 22 is for the HHR only. So we're going to skip down past 26, and we're almost at the end because the rest of this manual is non-English. So this is the last page. So past 26, and that puts us at 27 because we're doing a Cobalt. Now, basically 22 to 26 is the same thing as what I'm going to be doing here, which is finding a position where this would store your iPod or your iPhone and positioning the cable and grommet that came with it. But again, we're just going to do the Cobalt version. So they're going to want us to open up the glove box and align the template with the top and left side on the back and get ready to drill a 13/16 inch hole. So I'm going to go take this template that came in our kit. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take a photocopy of it. I'm going to cut this guy out. I'm going to get my drill with the right bit, and we're going to go pick it up when we're ready to drill that hole. All right, last step, guys. We're ready to drill the hole on the glove box. So they want you to remove the glove box and then put the template on it so you can drill the 13/16 inch hole. Now what I did is I took the template they give you, and I made a photocopy of it, and I cut the relevant piece out so that we can tape it on to guide us when we get ready to make that cut. So for now, let's just go ahead to work on removing this. So to remove this guy, you'll see a little notch tab right here. And on the other side, you'll actually be able to pull down on this elastic strap and remove this right here. And then you've got two kind of rubber bumpers on each side. And what they tell you is to press in on both sides at the same time, and that'll lower it down to here. And then it looks like we got two snap-in hinges and then just an alignment hinge. So let's try to remove one side here. And there we go. We got it off. All right, and so then our template, if we look at our picture, looks like our template's going to sit right like this, if we look at the picture there. And then we're going to go ahead and drill that hole. So let me get this taped in, and then we'll show drilling it, and then we'll mount it back. All right, guys, so we've got this template taped in here, just the way they suggest in this picture, in figure 10. And they mentioned that you're supposed to come up here with a center punch and mark a hole in the center where this circle is, so that you can align your 13/16 inch bit. And they're suggesting you're going to drill this in from the back of this guy. That's the main reason they want you to take it out. And if you take a look at this bit, you can see why, right? It's not a bit that I use very often, but it's pretty big. So it's not going to fit in here from the front at all. You got to come in from the back. So I did as they suggested. I took this block of wood and I positioned this guy on it. And I worked this center punch in here until I can just see a dimple on the other side right there. So now I can see where the center is. And now from the back, I can go ahead and take the center punch on that dimple and do the same thing from this side. and now we've got an alignment for our drill. So, get you some eye protection on, some hearing protection if you need it, and let's go ahead and drill this guy out. All right, we've gotten through this. Got to be real careful with this big bit. It sometimes can get caught like it did with me here. Get all these filings out of here. And the other thing you can do is you can come around with a round file. If you see any sharp spots, and you can get those out of the way with that. And once you're satisfied that you've gotten all the debris out of here and you've gotten the sharp spots, then you can go grab the cable and feed the RJ45 end in first until you get to the grommet end. And then the grommet end will seat in this. Now in mine, it jumped right here and made a little cut into the plastic. It's making it tough to get it to seal properly. I think I can get it to work. All right, so we've got that piece. Now we'll mount this back in and we'll reconnect it up. Okay, when you get ready to put it back in, just feed the cable down through the back area. This guy on this end, snap him in the middle next, and then get him on the third one. And then go grab your clip and pull it down so that you got it in your hand. And then you can push these sides in. Get it on there. Push both of these little rubber guys in so they go in where they're supposed to go. Verify it's working okay. And then we haven't glued this guy in yet because we want to test him out and make sure he's working okay. All right, so now we've got it all wired up. We've got it all connected. Now let's see what it says. So we've got that part done. And at this point, we've connected the cables. And we're ready to connect an iPod or an iPhone and check it out. So let's go get one of my old iPhones and let's check it out. All right, final step, guys. We got the glove box in, we've got our cable in, and we've got our test device. And like I said in the beginning, this is an older type of option. I'm going to show you how you can get some life out of it still. The main reason I made the video is in case somebody has this option and they're trying to repair it, or maybe even they're wanting to remove it, or maybe you want to add this because you've got an old iPod. So let's try this out, right? So I've got the keys on Accessory. I'm going to turn the radio on. We're sitting on FM right now. What it says here is we can work through the band button to go to the XM, and it says we've selected the iPod, but there's no iPod connected. Obviously the text is going to say iPod, and I'm going to take this iPhone 4S and I'm going to plug it in, and on the radio we should see it detect it, and it says it's loading the iPod, and that's my test device, so it sees it. And so now what I want to see is if I can get some music to play out of this. So let's see, settings. This is my volume button, all songs. There we go. And if I was to pick this first song here, now it's telling me on the iPhone this accessory may not be supported. Hit dismiss. This is because it's a newer version of iOS. So here's a YouTube song. We want this next one, the Ballroom Blitz. It's working just fine. And if we go further up here, it takes the next song, hopefully. Trying to get something that's not so quiet. Yeah, so it looks like it's working okay, right? This is the simple test. So obviously things are working. I'm going to go ahead and show you something else now, though. I'm going to disconnect this. Now, one of the things that I was mentioning earlier in the video is these old iPod connections were from the FireWire days, 12-volt charging, and later iPod Touches and iPhones use 5 volts, and you can't actually get a charge out of this when you plug it in, right? So if you watch up here on the battery side and I connect it, there's no charging. So what I want to do is I want to fix that. And there's a bunch of different things you can get. These aren't, you know, these came out at the time this kind of change happened. This is one I picked up off of eBay from iSimple. And all this guy is going to do is allow us to convert our 12 volts into 5. And now when I plug it in, I'm charging. It also remembers, I guess, where it's playing and keeps on cruising along with that. But now we got the charging working. Now I'm going to show you one other option here that can help you get this thing modernized. So the last thing I'll show you is there's a couple of adapters you can get from Apple. They're not made anymore, so you have to hunt them down on eBay. And you can't use the Chinese clones because typically those clones are just being used to charge, and they don't have the data lines connected. And in order for this device to work, the data lines are connected. But they have these two options, and in the video description I'll roll the Apple part numbers. You know, but one's this shorty one, and the other is this long one, and these will convert from the old iPod connection to Lightning. So you could pop one of these on here like this. If you didn't have a case, or if you had a case, you would probably use one like this. They give you some more slack, so you could leave a modern iPhone in here. And I'll go get a newer iPhone and plug it in here and show you how that it will actually charge a new iPhone and work with that as well. But down here on the bottom, so the last thing we got left to do is get this guy, you know, if you remember back at the beginning of the video, get this guy connected back up here to this heater cover. So I'm going to take this adhesion promoter, which is really just a cleaner that you're going to put on this plastic, and then I'm going to disconnect these guys and remove the tape on the side. Now I know it's working, and get it sitting up here. You can see inside here also I've gotten all these zip ties back onto our connector. Most of these are 6-inch zip ties like this, but a couple of these smaller ones like this line that we spliced in, I used a 4. I also used a 4-inch on the back side of that. So when I get this mounted, we can put the cover back on, and we're just about all done. So let me go get this, put it on. And one more thing I wanted to show you before we continue in the finishing the installation is this manual that they give you. So this is one of the things you can throw in the glove box after you're done. But it's in a bunch of different languages. And if I just pull off the English section, just to give you an idea, so it's just like 17 pages actually, 17 pages. And after you get it all set up, it'll go through and show you, talks a little bit about just how to know if everything's connected and how to plug it in. But it'll go in and show you what the buttons do and how they relate to the Apple Music app, which is what this guy controls over the connector. And it shows you how you can select iPod mode on your GM radio, on your Delphi radio. And it shows you what options you have on the control menu. And we saw some of that with the iPhone 4S, and we'll show some more near the end of the video with an iPhone 11. But this is basically just to let you have hands-free control of all of this. If you have the interest, it can play down to the track level. It can even, you know, fast forward through a particular song. You can shuffle through songs. If you've got the option where these controls are on your steering wheel, they're plugged into this PAL as well. So this is pretty cool that they give you this, and you can augment the existing owner's manual. All right, so let's get back to the install. All right, guys. Unfortunately, it looks like this little device that I got off eBay has died on us because I noticed it stopped charging, which indicates it probably just died. That's unfortunate. So I'll have to try and see if I can get another one or find something that's a little bit better quality. So this one apparently is not that great of a one to do, but you get the idea. There's these adapters, and if you get a quality one, I'll update the video description with what I find out later that actually works. But let me go ahead and show you. I was going to show you that you can use one of these Apple adapters, and you can use something more modern, like this iPhone 11. And as soon as I get this guy over here, plug it into the Lightning jack. And now if we come over here, we can see it sees this iPhone 11. And we can actually cycle through probably the songs that are on here. Just like we could on the iPhone 4S. So with that little adapter, you can use even the latest and greatest iPhone with this 10-year-old GM accessory, no problem. And you should be able to charge it if you can get a quality device to fit between the two. I thought I had one, but I guess not, and I'll have to keep searching for something that's a little better. Might even just open this guy up, and it's probably just a low voltage regulator in here on a little board, and it probably was just of shoddy quality. We can maybe fix it and get it back in service. Anyway, I hope this video helps you out, helps show you how to repair or even remove one of these personal audio links if you have it in your vehicle, or if you happen to want to pick one up on eBay. I still see people selling them from time to time, and you can install it yourself using what I've shown you in this video. If you have any questions about it, go ahead and leave me a question in the comments. I've got this all buttoned up down here and attached, you can see. So we got it attached as they showed, which was the last step. And I've zip tied the cable up here. You know, in hindsight, it really would have been better if they had like an L cable, because this is prone to somebody's foot hitting it, I would imagine. But it's in where they want it to go, and it's nice and secure with the kind of glue plus that adhesive. And we've gotten this piece snapped back in. Remember, put the two curved pieces in first, and then push in your clips 1, 2, and 3, and that'll complete this installation. I hope you enjoyed it. If you found this kind of content useful, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.